So you being a former pastor, and for those of you that don't know, Nicole was a former pastor, a very right-wing evangelical family that you came from, and then you just decided to go on your own, and you're doing pretty well for yourself. That would be an understatement. She got out of that lifestyle. So Speaker Mike Johnson, who is a ultra-religious right-wing zealot, he has like apps called accountability partners to monitor his son's porn. I'm not making this up, by the way.
No,
it's true.
I totally know.
He's an absolute weirdo. And he starts talking about redemption, right? He uses the term redemption when asked about the January 6th insurrectionists, particularly those that committed horrible, violent acts. Now, Adam Kinzinger is a Republican, but he's a reasonable Republican. And I want you to listen to what Adam Kinzinger said about Mike Johnson's redemption statements.
So I'm speaking as a Christian here. I saw Speaker Johnson say, we believe in redemption. How dare you use the Bible in this? First off, the big key on redemption is repentance. All these people you just showed, have no repentance. Yeah. In fact, they think what they did is right. And look, Pam Hemphill, who actually is rejecting the pardon, she has real repentance for this. And then, by the way, Hunter Biden, who was actually repentant of the things he did, spent 2 years being attacked for political purposes. I mean, don't talk about repentance, Speaker Johnson. Defend this. Go out and defend that there's these criminals on the street now. Do that. I respect if you do it. All these Republicans, go on the record and say you agree with this, but don't come here with repentance to me.
What are your thoughts on that, Nicole?
I love that. I think it's true. Like, again, it's a double standard. They will give redemption to who look like them, sound like them, talk like them, think like them. But if you're outside of that box, outside those categories, then you deserve punishment. You're a criminal. You're the problem. But they're just, cherry picking from the Bible, using the right words for their crew, for their people to know, hey, I'm on your side. I've got you. I'll get you out of this.
And by the way, Adam Kinzinger, who's done this show before, and Pam Hemphill, who he spoke about, has done this show also. And I speak with her on a regular basis. She's a very nice lady. She went to jail for going into the Capitol, and she not only, stood up and apologized and owned what she did, but she has put partial blame on Trump, and she's on the right side of history now, and she does not want to be pardoned, by the way.
Wow.
She's an honorable lady, and I respect her
Wow.
a great deal. So another controversy involving religion, and then we'll take some phone calls here in a couple of minutes, Nicole. You had a bishop that spoke the other day in front of Donald Trump. I don't know if you saw the video.
I saw it.
You did see it.
It was
Okay, good.
so good.
I thought it wasn't political.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but this bishop talked about mercy. She talked about those that were less fortunate. She talked about those, which is true, in the LGBT community, those that are in the trans community, and migrants and children and families that are scared.
Yeah.
She talked, and all she said was, Mr. President, I ask you for mercy. That's all she said. Yeah. She didn't say something like, I didn't vote for you, or you're a scumbag. That's something I would say. She didn't say, I voted for Kamala Harris. You're going to be a terrible president. She didn't go down that route. Now, if she did, I would have said that's inappropriate, not the right time. She didn't.
Yep.
All she said in like a minute or two of her sermon, right? All she said was mercy for those that are scared.
Yes.
Did you see anything wrong with anything she said there?
I mean, that goes back to what I just said a little bit ago. Like, we are so programmed and on the right side to purge ourselves of empathy and mercy that when someone calls for it, it's such an affront to you that you immediately have to make them the problem and say they're getting political, when it's like, no, this is not a political issue. This is have mercy, have compassion. Think about the repercussions that your decisions have on people who are less fortunate than you and your boy club. Like, I think her message was exactly what was needed. I thought it was absolutely appropriate. And the fact that it was so triggering just shows how far off base they are as a person.
I agree. And she's been attacked. And I say to myself, the people out there that have a problem with the bishop, like the Donald Trumps and the J.D. Vances of the world, anybody who has a problem with what that bishop said, because her message was only of mercy for those that are scared. That's all the message was. Anybody who had a problem with anything she said are probably bigots. They're probably homophobic. They're probably transphobic.
100%.
They don't want brown people in this country. I mean, I just don't see it. Listen, if I thought she went a little bit too far, even if I agreed with her, like, for example, if she called him an orange orangutan or something, right? I would laugh and I would agree with it, but I wouldn't agree with the time and place of saying it, right? Not there. I'm not a religious person. You
Mhm.
studied this stuff. You're a former pastor. Wouldn't Jesus agree with her message of mercy for those that are less fortunate, mercy for those that are being attacked? Wouldn't Jesus
Yep.
be okay with that statement?
Yes, it's like feed the hungry, clothe the poor, look out for those who have less than you. And somehow those are always looked over by the right when it comes to actually putting that into action.
Yeah. As a
It's
former
horrible.
as a former pastor, final question here in regards to this. What would be your message to those out there on the evangelical right or Republicans in general, MAGA Republicans, that are not only attacking this bishop, but seem to think that it's okay to deport 20 million people, it's okay to attack the trans community and the LGBT community? As a former pastor, what would be your message to all these people in the MAGA base that are also attacking this bishop? What would you say?
So, as someone who was raised on that side of the fence, the thing that changed me and what I always encourage people to do is I started reading and listening to the views on the other side, by the other side, not just what my side was saying about that side, but actually reading their articles, reading their books, watching their YouTube videos. Like I started listening to the other side just to see what can I learn from them. And the more I listened, the more I saw how many lies my side told me about that side. And the more I saw what a game it was, how so much of what I've been fed my whole life was not true, and it was all to make them bad and us good. And that I saw like the humanity on the other side. I understood where they were coming from. It started clicking and making sense. And that led to me slowly moving over to the other side. So my number one piece of advice is don't just listen to what your side has to say about the other side. Go listen to the other side. Listen, learn, soak in, and I think you'll be blown away by what you learn.
I think that's really well said. Last question on this issue, and then I want to take some phone calls.
Okay.
Kent Sorbo, I don't know if you know who this moron Sorbo is. He's a former, he doesn't even really act anymore. I don't even know if he does. But this guy Sorbo, who's a right-wing moron who lives in Hollywood, who's a washed-up actor, he goes along the same lines of like a James Woods, or these morons that are so far to the right. So Sorbo goes on social media today in regards to talking about this bishop and says, quote, "The Bible's very clear on who's supposed to lead the church." So stating basically men should be leading the church and women who are more than capable of reading a Bible and, conducting a sermon or whatever the case may be. What would you say to a guy like a Kevin Sorbo who makes a statement like that, which to me is so misogynistic?
Yes. Mike, if it's so clear, then why do we have entire denominations where women are the leaders and women are pastors, and if they're both using the same holy book? Like, if it's so clear, then everyone would be on the same page. But the fact that there's so many denominations shows there's not a lot of clarity there. And at the end of the day, I just think it's baffling that these people believe that the divine or God would choose someone based on their genitals. And I remember asking someone very close to me as I was starting to leave the right because I couldn't believe what I'd been taught to believe. And I said, you're telling me the only reason this is when I was becoming a pastor, the only reason I cannot become a pastor is because I have an extra pair of lips?
Yeah.
And this person paused and said, wow, I never thought of it like that. But yeah, I guess you're
true.
right.
That's one
and
way
I'm
of
like,
putting it.
oh my gosh, I can't believe you would admit that. Don't you hear the absurdity of that? Like, but they were totally cool with that.
You're absolutely, that's one way of putting it, and you're absolutely right. Sorbo is a misogynistic pig like so many in the MAGA movement who, if they had it their way, they just believe women should be in the kitchen.
100%.
And the men should be the only ones that should be allowed to vote.
Yep.
Women should just, make me dinner. It's the misogynist views coming from the far right, not the left. It's despicable. It's disgusting. That's who Donald Trump is, and that's who so many are that are in the MAGA base.